Okay, fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We're very excited to have Peter Lamonica with us today. And turn off my alerts just to start off. There we go. So thank you so much for joining us today. Peter Lamonica is the Department Chair of Computer Science at Manchester Community College in New Hampshire. And he teaches cybersecurity, which is probably the hottest topic today. And Peter has a long career. I'm going to let Peter go ahead and talk about a little bit about his career. But my name is Renah Wolzinger, Dr. Renah Wolzinger, and I am the Director of Customer Success at Eon Reality. My background is in biomedical engineering and higher education leadership. So, Peter, welcome very much to our webinar today.
Thank you. Well, I came out of government, and I was working with computers, probably in the wrong place at the right time, kind of a thing. And I just kept advancing up. Never really thought that I would be where I am now. My career in education started really completely by accident, where I was going all the way back to Wang Labs, and I don't know if anybody remembers them or not, but I was a guest instructor for a college, and I got a last-minute call to teach a class. And since then, I've been teaching adults and college classes. And around 95, I came up here to New Hampshire. I was working in law enforcement and working for a forensics lab, a digital forensics lab. When it came time, I decided that I could retire, and I got an offer here from the college to do that. If I stayed where I was, they really wanted me to go down to Dulles, Virginia, which is not really where I wanted to go. So I retired and came here full time, created a cybersecurity program here, and here we are.
Oh, that's fantastic. First of all, students are lucky to have people like you who have a lot of industry experience, and especially workforce students and our community college students. When I teach in the community colleges, it's a huge benefit. So thank you for doing that. I'm sure that's amazing experience. And so today we're going to talk about some of the things in the AR, VR world with Eon, and some of the things that kind of challenges, glimpse into the future, and how we use applications to help our students in the various programs. So let's just start today with some challenges in education. So we know we've been online, and I know some schools are back. Mine is back in person for a lot of courses. But what do you see as some of the challenges with this generation, being that they're kind of multitaskers and kind of raised with phone technology and visual information, or kind of that immediate information as far as teaching? What do you see as some of those challenges?
Well, the challenges are there, but the teaching still is pretty much the same as it was. It's just that the technology has changed, and the instructors and the professors just need to stay abreast of what the technology is. Students, sure, they're multitasking. They need the information faster now, but they can get it faster now. It's up to the colleges and the high schools to step up to the plate here to teach the students on their platform. I remember when we couldn't use computers calculators in the classroom.
Oh, right.
Now, we have phones, and all the information's right there. I had a high school chemistry teacher, and I still use him as an example. His name was John Hoos. And I was a terrible chemistry student. And John said to me, "What's the atomic weight of gold?" And I had no idea. And he said, "Well, where is it?" And I said, "Well, it's on the periodic table over there." He says, "So go look at it." And that's what I tell my students. And now they have the tools. They can look at it. They've got the cell phone. They're always connected to the internet. So it really is. It makes it a lot easier for our students to get the information that maybe they just don't have right now. But as long as they can find it, that's great. So the technology, I think, is a plus. The fact that they're multitasking is a plus. So all of those things that we need to play on their strengths.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I find myself, and I'm sure a lot of the other people do, like asking more questions and getting more answers. And so probably a bad habit, but I have a question about anything, I'm on my phone, and if it's something immediate, like, oh, was that an earthquake? Like, I'm on Twitter, like, immediately, and I want to see the magnitude. Where was it? Like, before I would just like accept something happened, but because I do want to know like that extra piece, and I'm super inquisitive, maybe because I'm a teacher, but I'm always.
Well, I find the kids doing that too. If they're wondering about something, they just go look it up. Where when I couldn't do that. We didn't have the technology to do it then.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So next question is about just jobs in the future. Like, do you think that we need to adapt education differently for jobs now and in the future, like the way that we teach, problem solving, critical thinking, maybe competency-based education? I know there's a lot of concepts that we deal with, especially in the community college system. And like, I've gone through a lot of kind of trainings in those areas, and it seems to kind of ebb and flow, guided pathways, competency-based education, definitely. And then kind of the job skill types of things that have come up. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Well, my students, when they leave me, they're going to go out and get jobs somewhere. And those jobs, I think, are going to be very, very heavily into AR and VR. They're going to be using that technology. So if I'm not teaching them how to use it, I'm really not doing my job. If you think about even like a line worker, they're not going to be climbing up a pole in 20 years. They're going to be, there'll be a drone or a robot or something up there, and they'll be doing that kind of thing from a desk someplace. My students coming out of cybersecurity and computer science and the IT program, they're all going to be sitting behind a desk and doing stuff using augmented reality. They'll have heads-up displays. They'll have, it'll be all of that kind of that AR technology that they'll be using. So we need to teach them how to use it. My programming students, they need to know how to program that stuff because if I don't, they're missing the boat.
Absolutely. If I could share my screen for a second, and then maybe just look at a simple circuit board, just as far as what this looks like in AR. So one of the things I've enjoyed in my teaching now is being able to show kind of parts in AR. So VR, simple circuit board on in VR, but then in AR, I can have students kind of cast it where they are. This casting AR in my house, just looking through my phone, and then showing, like, learning about different parts. This could be anything, though. In cyber, you're probably doing something different, but this is just kind of an example of how I would teach, and then have them kind of research information and add it to their, and talking about speed using, I kind of like them to use artificial intelligence so they get used to, oh, how does AI work? In this example in Eon, it's taking pictures or using text or images and then adding that content. But to me, in the past, that was like, okay, you guys are going to do research and write it and read it. But now they're going to be finding that information faster and sharing it with me, sharing it with the class, kind of reflect on it. And so I love that AR experience because most of my students have phones. You don't need anything. You don't need a LiDAR scanner or anything to do AR. You have to have the app, and then you can import anything. We use mostly Sketchfab, but anything in there, and then start sharing and adding information. So in that, I wanted to ask you in terms of cybersecurity, how AR is helpful for students.
Well, we're doing the same thing. And, from my point of view, we teach cybersecurity as if the student doesn't really know anything at all. So, as a community college, we do teach what's inside the computer. Because if you don't know how to get around a computer, I tell my students, if somebody breaks into your network and you don't know, and I ask you questions like, well, how long have they been there? And you don't know because you don't know how computers work or how networks work. Well, you're not really doing me a lot of good. So we start with exactly what you were just showing. We start our students with A+ and Network Plus and Security Plus, and they learn all of that. So we take those circuit boards, and this is stuff that we used to have to have in a big box somewhere. Even students who were here, I have all these old components hanging around. It just didn't work. We went to using some other platforms that have pictures of stuff. And what we discovered is that sometimes those pictures weren't exactly right, where they were describing something wrong and we couldn't fix it. And students would go and look for things forever and couldn't find them. This way we can create our own. We just, here's an image of a circuit board. This is what kind of circuit board it is. This is where you plug things into it. So we found that really works well for us. In our network class, we were talking about how data moves around, and that's important to the cyber students. And there's a lot of concepts there, and I know what it looks like in my head, but for a student, they can't really see into my head, and trying to describe what I'm thinking was hard. Now I can take that and I can go into 3ds Max or some 3D program, draw something up, put it up on the screen, and there it is. And now I can point to stuff. So concepts really work out really well because now I can show them what I'm thinking.
That's fantastic. I remember learning linear circuits, which seemed so easy till I had tests on it. And it would have been great to see actually where my designs got stuck, like kind of in real time, it's just and it's different in 3D than in animation. I mean,
isn't it nice to be able to see how data is moving through the network and how somebody's going from here to there? I can show a student that now.
Absolutely. I was just wondering because you did mention A+, and I'm very familiar with CompTIA, worked on industry credentials with the CompTIA to kind of integrate them in community colleges, across the U.S. with the credentials engine and things like that. And so this is a little, not really off topic, but I'm just curious on industry credentials. Do you think there's a way that we can help students with those types of tests with AR and VR? I never really thought about it, but just a question off the cuff, does it help them to see these things and to answer those questions?
We think so. The final exam for 4 of our classes is the CompTIA exam. So we're using AR and VR in those classes so that they can visualize what it is they're looking at to make it much easier for them. And we have a pretty good success rate on pass rate for those exams. So I think it was working out really well. So I think that, and I love getting those students those kind of certifications because they're excellent to have.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's A+, and then is it called network security, something like that?
There's A+ that we do. We do A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. So we do those.
I know they're difficult because sometimes the multiple choice is more than one right answer, and then you might not get them all, and so they're not so easy. So you can kind of match up maybe your competencies or outcomes for those tests to each lesson or model that you have.
Yep, and that's exactly what we tried to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really interesting to me. So moving on a little bit, I wonder about, have you found any key challenges around implementing, because, us as faculty are so busy, there's initiatives and things, and I don't see this as initiative. I see this like when the internet came in, it's like you can ignore it, but then eventually you can't ignore it anymore. So I learned that lesson the hard way when I was developing medical products, and I was looking for venture capital against other people that were creating internet apps. I didn't see the value of it. Was like smoke and mirrors in my head. Well, they all got funded.
Yeah.
So I had to take a second look. So I kind of learned that lesson the hard way. And
I'm not sure why they all got funded.
So I wonder about, AR, VR, if you have that same, it sounds like you have the same kind of idea that I do.
And getting the funding for that is sometimes it's a little challenging. In fact, I just came out of a meeting with the college president, and that was one of the things that we were talking about was funding for AR stuff and trying to get funding so I can get more equipment in here so that my students can make better use out of it.
Absolutely.
So funding is a real issue. It's going to be forever. So
yeah, I did meet with some folks that do Perkins, and luckily, what we do, we meet those and surpass those requirements like special populations, and things like that. So that's hopefully a future funding source, or maybe current funding source as well. So
yeah, and Perkins, I don't know if everybody, I'm not sure where all the audience is, but that's a federal grant program.
It's federal US based grant program. So there's probably similar things around the world, maybe for workforce education. So a few things that's really changed in the last couple of years here is one is just the devices being faster, the graphics cards, and newer devices. The pro versions have kind of the LiDAR scanners, so you can add models by scanning. I mean, they're different, but it's valid, like when you're looking at small parts or things that there might not be models of. And then the other one that I really like is avatars. So the avatars are changing really fast. I wanted to kind of bring up an avatar that I have. I'll do it while we're talking because I have to find it. But the avatar technology kind of started as kind of cartoony. Then it became like there's some avatars and they took up a lot of real estate and they're just kind of limited. But the new technology is it uses the webcam to take an image of your face, and then it can also motion capture everything. So as I bring that up, I was wondering if you had any thoughts about using that in lessons. I know a lot of professors in certain fields are thinking about procedures or assembly or different motion things. I know in kinesiology is one of the areas that was really looking for something different, and this is going to help them.
Yeah, well, my dream with AR or VR is that avatars get to the point where I can place myself into a room with my students. We can all be there together as avatars and conduct a class right there.
Yeah,
that's where I think we're all headed. And as you mentioned, with the speed, as the speeds keep going up and as 5G gets implemented around the world, with that kind of latency and that kind of speed, I think we can really, I think we'll have the horsepower finally to really do this and to do it well. Right now, maybe we're not quite there, but we will be soon. And I would really like to have my avatar sitting there in front of the classroom, as opposed to the way we're doing it now.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and especially on Zoom. Then you can actually make sure they're listening, which is so challenging. It was very hard to teach everything I was doing online this last couple of years. But
yeah, you're never quite sure whether everybody's there with you or not.
Yeah, so these are kind of the new avatars. We've partnered with Ready Player 3. So this is an image of one of our folks. And then you can, of course, adjust it how you want, but it records your image of your face. And then you can pick what you wear and all the features of yourself. And then it'll record motion as well. So it's a whole new world. But you can also tell, what I'm excited about is it takes up less real estate because you want students to focus on the asset as well, not just the avatar. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, but I think you're right. Having that newer technology and then having it be fast enough. Yeah. And I think the real estate's important though, because if you have a typical class, mine are about 20 to 25 people, 20 to 25 avatars doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But that's another thing to think through, like how many of those are in a room, or do you have like extra space where the model's still seen, but people are in the periphery, and you let some people in the middle or something. I think there's some things to think about. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we would like to do is to create crime scenarios in virtual reality, so that we could have a room and we can have students come in. We've already built a couple of them to a point. We haven't really used them yet because we're just not quite there yet, where we've planted things in a room for a cyber investigator to go and find and to identify. We can get a couple of 3-4 people in a room like that. We haven't quite gotten there ourselves. We were looking at a product that we were going to purchase through Perkins, actually, and that just fell through. But getting there ourselves, I think, is probably the only way I'm going to do it. And it's going to help me do that because with the amazing advances that in just a short time we've been using it that they've made is almost allowed me now to do that. I'm just about there.
I saw an example that actually I was just sharing this morning with our friends in East London around scenarios, and it was an escape room kind of thing. But so the first page was one experience where it was a picture of all these things that are going to happen, which is more of a Photoshop. Then each experience, which is its own Eon lesson, had something like, okay, you're going to find this thing, and then you have to talk about it and say, what, I guess there's questions about, like one of them was like a cell, and it had all these parts, and it was dissected, and there was questions about it. Okay, so this is one clue. Then you go to another one, and it had something different, and there was like 10 of them. And so I thought it was really a creative way to use different models, and I've come to the conclusion that everything's not going to happen in one picture, right, or one model. Right. And I think it's easy to try to make it happen that way, and you can do that in things like Blender or 3D Studio Max. But also, why not just have another picture? Yeah. And then part 2, part 3. So it works really well. So I just thinking about what you're saying about cyber. I think it's easier, right? Because you can find one piece of what you need for them to do that problem solving all the way through, than trying to find one environment exactly what you have in your head. Sometimes you have to I do one like that. I do a lot of contrast and compare on audio equipment and film equipment. I definitely use different experiences. But then sometimes you want one experience. Here's a set with the lighting plot, and that's like one picture. So I guess you can kind of use both. So another thing I wanted to ask about, one of the things in spatial meetings, and I have a little picture of our current avatars, which is fine for this examples here. It's a demonstration of a industry professional going through equipment in a cockpit. So I'll play a couple seconds of it.
For tuning the left and right VHF radios, the microphone, and receiver select.
So in one of the things I realized within Eon is you can do the screen recording is more valuable than I think people realize. So I can just hit a screen record and capture all this stuff, and then I can put it in subsequent lessons or subsequent terms for my students. So in cyber or in your area, you think that could be valuable, or what are your ideas on that?
Yeah, I do. As as we introduce new programs. For instance, we were doing a Wireshark lab the other day, and trying to point things out to students in a classroom sometimes gets a little difficult. And I can put a picture up on the screen, or I can display it up on the monitors that we have around the classroom. But being able to do it in this kind of way, in a VR environment, I think would be a lot more personal. Students can now do that. They don't need me to be standing right in front of them to do it. You're an instructor. You're a teacher. You know that you have these 3 students that were sitting over here, and one of them is way ahead of you. One of them's right on the mark, and the other one's struggling to catch up. And they're all asking questions about where it is they are. So that makes it tough. But if I had this kind of an AR or VR scenario that they could just go through, and I'm there with them, that's just good. That makes it so much easier.
That's a really good point. And following on that, have you done things like have them make their own, like figure out their own models? Like, so you give them a challenge and say, okay, I want you to create something based around a certain problem, but they have to go create their own, find their own, or recommend their own models to use or something like that.
Yeah, we actually, my capstone class is all of my students together, the programmers, the cybersecurity, and the cloud IT program. And what we do with those students is we say, all right, go find the thing that tripped you up the most. And of course, we know already, and find yourself some kind of a model, create a lesson, and you teach me what it is that you couldn't figure out when you were in the program. And that's exactly what they do. They go out and they create their own models. They use Eon as the platform to teach me how to do it. And what they're really doing is they're learning how it works, and they're working through their problems that they might have been having when they were trying to learn it in the first place.
That's phenomenal. I wish I had that for fluid mechanics. The non-Newtonian fluid mechanics, crazy subject. But no, that's fantastic. I think the thing that surprises me is all the things I don't think about that my students think about, or types of models they choose or problems they choose to solve are different than the ones I choose. The other thing that surprises me with them is, teaching, because I teach editing, is giving them all the steps and then they don't follow my steps. So they're like, okay, that's cool that you do it that way, but I'm going to do it I'm just going to push all the buttons and then figure out my own steps.
Make it work. Well, I don't give students steps a lot of times, depending on what it is. But I like to see students inventing their own way, giving them enough latitude, because they may have a completely different way of doing it that I never thought about that was much easier. And that happens a lot.
I think that's kind of the key to kind of deploying technology tools in general is, if I'm going to create everything for them, then I'm going to be able to, I have a limited amount of time, right? Depending on how many classes I'm teaching and my committees and all the things, the grant writing and thing happens. But I'm pretty good at creating assignments and then letting them create content. So especially teaching film and music, I mean, those are very long projects. So, and I'm a project-based learning professor. So that for me is like a natural way to do it. Here's an example. You guys go do your, I have them check in, right? Get approval from me on things they're going to do, subjects they're going to do, and all the content, make sure they hit all the things that are required. And then, so I use this the same way as well. Just, I create stuff, but I have them create more stuff, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And Eon as a platform really is helpful to them. Everybody creates PowerPoints, and it's just linear. And I really don't want my students thinking that way. And when I have them creating with Eon as the platform, they're not thinking in a linear fashion anymore. They're creating stuff visually. So I think that's a much better model to work off of.
That reminds me of another thing that I wanted to kind of change the way I thought about this. It actually surprised me in the 1-to-1 scale. Let me get a quick example up. Here we go. So it changed the way I kind of thought about teaching and experiencing, because the first thing you think about models is they're models, but 1-to-1 scale is a different experience. So this is where I came up with it. I was looking at, this is a quick thing on a robot, R2-D2, but this is a scale thing. So this is a big ship. So I was realizing a lot of these models, you'll see a thumbnail, and this one is probably like a brown square. I can't tell what it is. But when I brought it on my phone and I put in AR in my house, it was still like a bunch of stuff close to me. And then so I went outside and I was like, oh, it's giant. So and then so I started to do some other stuff. So I found another one that was like an environment that I took outside. So there's inside, and then I took it outside. And I was like, oh, this could be like amazing, where you can go in buildings or around buildings and do other things. And then one of the things, fortunately, that are coming up is you can add these models. Actually, most of them have moving parts. So you can even move things and do assessment that way. But you can also now add, using Blender, you can add more parts. But in Eon, I think in the next couple of months, you can add 2 or I think it's up to 3 assets. So I could add things in here and do some investigation. But that scale for me is, it's a game changer. I think it just, it's something that the reason I say it's surprising, because, first thing you think about is you get a motor, you take it apart, you put it together, or circuit board. But if you're walking around in an environment and it looks so real when you're looking in your device, and even more real when you're with goggles, but it's a different, a completely different experience. Yeah. So
now when you do this outside, you're doing this on a Saturday afternoon when everybody's in the neighborhood watching you, or do you do this like on a Wednesday morning?
Wednesday morning.
Everyone's at work. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. not gardening day where there's all blowers in my neighborhood. Yeah, I do it. In my neighborhood on a weekday, I go out there, but it's it's a different experience. See things in 1-to-1, and it's hard to explain because you're looking through, like, even just my phone. Those are all off of my phone, and I'm just using an iPhone, and not even the big one, but it just looks like you're in there. It's a different experience. So I was just thinking, as far as like workforce or training or scenarios, that it's a different way to get students experience things that, like, areas that they wouldn't normally get to see maybe before they go to work.
Yeah, I get made fun of when I walk down the hall with AR glasses on.
It's so cool, though.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
But I just wonder, like, if students are kind of caught on to that 1-to-1 scale yet, and like, experience like environments.
Nobody's really. I don't think anybody's ever really said anything to me about it yet. But that's relatively new, so I'm not sure that they've really caught on.
Yeah. I just love environments. For my students, one of the things that's hard for me to teach, and it was hard virtually, was spaces in a recording studio. So, like, what's a control room versus where's all the equipment? Why are they in different rooms? What's audio feedback look like? What happens to sine waves when they bend off of walls? So all of that information, I can walk them through a studio and have one here. And then they can just kind of see what I'm talking about. And so it obviously depends what you're teaching, but usually things relate to kind of real life. So like in this one, like they can kind of walk through and see all the things, go in the different rooms and experience that with me. And then, there's a lot of other things they can do as well, and add content, which I did there, but, a lot of opportunities for kind of seeing what these spaces. So if you're the type of professor that teaches in the lab, like I do, then at least you have, they can go and learn about that in kind of that 1-to-1 space as well, and then research on content within that area. So, I'm not sure in cyber if that's applicable, but
most to a point, yeah. And like I said, the crime scene stuff, we will be doing crime scene stuff, but working around and doing an investigation to where we would bring a student into a room like that, and we haven't quite got to this point yet. Bring students into a room so that they can now identify tools that are being used by the person who's doing the attack. And that's where that's going to come into play. And that's where the advances now in the technology are going to help us do that. 2 years ago, we wouldn't have considered doing it. But now the technology has gotten to the point where we can.
That's fantastic. I don't know if you're an Oculus person or AR or whatever, but I don't know if you use their in gaming environments. There's multi-tools, so it kind of reminds me of what you're talking about, where you can pick up a tool, be like a welder or something, an assembly things. Yeah, I really like those for. I think that's maybe a glimpse into the future, but interesting. Maybe I can ask you, what are some of your favorite features for teaching in either AR, VR, Merge XR?
I think some of the stuff that I talked about, the concept stuff, really is one of the favorite things that I've got, because it just makes that something that I could not do before at all. With the models, I could bring something in, and I still do hand around parts to talk about what it is. But with the concepts, I couldn't do that before, and I think that's the thing that surprised me the most, that I could do it, because I never even thought about it before. But once I started working with it, it was like, well, gee, I can put how data moves through a network in. I can visualize that for them. I can create the different kinds of ways that data travel and let them see it. And I think that's the thing that I like the most.
That's fantastic. I wonder, the newest version of Eon has we partner with Sketchfab, so you can go on your phone, and then let's say, because some of my students do everything on their phone. Like, I don't know how students do that. I don't know. I'm from the generation that's my secondary device. My computer is my first, but that's not true for a lot of my students, and some of my students don't have computers, even, of course, being community college students. So now Sketchfab, you can type in something on there and then the models come up and you can scroll through them. So I kind of think that for students, there are a lot of students are going to be doing things that way. So it forces more of the feature sets for the user end of it to go in the phone when you do that, because you're not on the computer. So you need to be able to type things in, even steer your artificial intelligence searching in a certain way, do all your labeling on the phone and all that. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that for students and the way they use their phones, and if that might be something that is, I don't know, maybe even easier and faster for them to get adopted.
I'm like you, where my phone is my secondary device, and I would rather use the computer. But all of my students, they all have phones, and that's their primary device, and that's what they use. Maybe it's because I can't see my phone as well as they can see their phone. I don't know. It's just too small for me to work off of. I think I need a bigger platform than that. But they seem to do just fine. And I haven't gotten into some of the stuff that's just come out. And we were supposed to do something last week, but I got really busy here with a couple of things going on, and kind of dropped the ball on that. But I hope to move into some of the newer stuff that's just come out with Eon in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. I think what surprised me there is Sketchfab, even though it's the same app, when you look on the phone, the search comes up where I think all the ones on the phone are the unpaid versions, and they look, they look amazing, and I bring them in. So, and I think when I search on the computer, the AI must be different between the two from Sketchfab. They come up a little bit differently. So I'm starting to create like links of lists for different subjects that come up, but there's more on there than I'd seen before, is what I'm trying to say, when I use my phone versus the computer. Mm-hmm. That kind of surprised me. I do think maybe the AI is different between the two from Sketchfab. Yeah. Another thing on the assessment side of Eon, where you can do quizzes or practice quizzes, right, or learn about things, but you can do like 3D assessment, assemble. I think for me, you can also do, like, let's say you add 5 things and you want to know which order they go in, 1, 2, 3, or 5. You can do order of operations and see if they understood that. So in your area, I know we have our LMS, we do assessment there, but for practicing assessment or actual assessment, is that something that you think is helpful in a 3D environment?
The assessment stuff, going through the quizzes and doing, that part of it, we make really good use out of that. But the other piece of that, where I can trace how people are putting parts together, we don't use that all that much. We probably should be, but it's not something that we've really gotten into yet. I could see us using that in the A+ classes.
Yeah.
As students are placing things in and what order to put them in.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm just thinking like those first IT jobs. One of my kids is a newer IT specialist. And so that and then, that's like kind of the precursor to the cyber job a lot of times when you start working. And so there's like so many things that you have to know, like, and some of it is actual like cards and things that are going in and out of computers that they manage, but a lot of it's order of operations. So going through security and types of software and the things to check in order, so that you don't like just wipe everything off and start over, because you might find something in the order. So I kind of may think about it like that as far as IT. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I wanted to ask a couple of things like about post-pandemic. I don't know if you're back in person yet. I mean, your students or?
We are back. Right now, my class size is limited, but that probably, hopefully, will go away by next semester. So the classes are a little bit smaller, but other than that, I think for the most part we're back in person.
Fantastic. So do you foresee, or maybe you do it in your own class, like having a central place on campus, like a library or something, or a makerspace, or your classes or something where people would go and maybe collaborate or check out equipment or use it on campus, things like that?
We don't have anything on campus wide, but my computer science department's a little bit different than most because we maintain all our own equipment here. So students do come into our labs to use equipment that in a different way than they can use it elsewhere on campus. We've got some AR stuff that the students come in and use. They can come in and work in our lab space whenever they need to. So we've tried to make this area technology-wise a little more advanced than most other areas around, and allow the students to come in and use it.
Oh, that's great. I know a lot of them, well, especially if you end up doing like AR glasses or goggles and things,
right,
they wouldn't have.
Yeah, and those things are expensive, and community college students can't just go out and buy that stuff. And, they're struggling to do everything else that needs to get done for the week and come to class and pay for school and support their family. Going out and buying a set of VR headsets is not where they're going.
Exactly. I think that's one of the things that has really changed this whole field is that they're great to have and they're a great experience, but you can do everything really in a nice way on a tablet and a phone as well. So I think that's an important change.
Yeah, and that's a real help, being able to do all of this on a phone or a tablet. Just the way you can do it with AR glasses really is huge for the students.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder, I don't know if you've gotten into digital twins at all, but I've starting to really appreciate. Maybe we can talk about it for a minute. So out here, the city of Las Vegas kind of mapped their whole city, and then they put sensors around, and they used the map of it, and they overlaid it over. So they made a digital twin of their city, and but there's real sensors around, so you can start analyzing things like, oh, there's too much traffic here. We need to widen the street. Oh, we need more parking here. Oh, this old hotel needs to go. We need a bigger one here. All of those types of things. And in industry, the same types of thing, you make a digital twin on a process. So let's say it's a circuit board and you want to do the next faster one so that you have, you're analyzing parts on there. So you're maybe sitting in your office analyzing parts and maybe performance factors, QA factors. But the AI is attached to digital twin. So you're getting all this information off of like an IoT device, and it's mapped to the real part. So the digital twin allows you kind of to just connect the computer to that thing and collect information. So it's become like the new kind of way of doing QA, process improvement, city planning, all kinds of things like that. So I kind of think in cyber, there's probably applications in that in terms of like hacking and things. I'm not sure, but I don't know if that's something that you're getting into yet. But
that's an interesting thought because I had not considered it for what we're doing. I know advanced manufacturing is using digital twins. We're not doing it here, but that would be something interesting to think about.
Yeah, I guess it'd be where there's process optimization. Comes down to that. But yeah, you're right. It in manufacturing is kind of the obvious area. Agriculture, things where you need to analyze spaces and do process improvement. So, but it is something that I think it's kind of foreign until you kind of start doing it and lining up things. And I think that there's a lot of value maybe to that. To me, to just learn the basics, right? The scanning. What's a digital twin? How do you overlay it? What does that mean? How do you attach AI to it? So, I wonder if you're in your field, in the AI and the cybersecurity, that section is probably where it probably comes into play, I bet.
Yeah, and it probably would be much easier for us to create digital twins of things and do it that way rather than to try to create, say, a 360-degree image and plant things in there. I think it would be obviously it's going to be much more, we'd be able to do more, I think, in using that kind of technology than just a 360-degree image of something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I use it for, so like good example is any part on my desk here. So I teach physics in terms of sound. So like there's lots of models of microphones like this, but there's not models of like condenser elements and diaphragm elements, and how the physics works with what different types of substances that make up these things. And so, but I can scan them, so that I can use it. I can make a digital twin, but I can also just use a scan as a teaching modality. Right. Yeah. So and it's pretty easy with the newer phones. Just takes about 15 seconds to scan some. And then you bring it in. Actually, you can bring it into Eon, but you can also bring them into Sketchfab and share them with other people around the world too. Those scans. So some that I like to do. I do them. I tend to find just random stuff. Like this weekend, I was walking I live by the ocean on a pier, and there's a brand new kind of lifeguard kind of dune buggy thing I'd never seen before. And so I scanned it, and it's just like a beautiful model. So I can share that with everybody else. It's some random thing. So I just tend to pull out my phone now when I see it. I used to take pictures, but now I take 3D images if it's something. Yeah. So pretty interesting. I think I finally wanted to ask you about just what do you think the future is of, do you have any thoughts, AR, VR, avatars? We haven't talked about accessibility, and that's another area around these apps that come to mind.
Like, you probably run into it too in your college. But as I said, we've got students and they're working. They sometimes find it difficult coming into class for any number of reasons, where maybe they have to stay home one day, and we get a lot of that. Or I'll get an email from a student saying, I can't come in today because something happened with somebody. Or I have students who drive over an hour to get here. This is, we don't have housing here. So they all have to drive. It's a commuter school. And that's a long way for students to come for just one class. So if we could do all of that in an AR kind of a world, that would be great. We had here in computer science anyway, long before the pandemic, we were doing 360-degree recordings of our classrooms and saving those and streaming those if the students wanted. But mostly we were saving them and letting them watch them later on. And that was really great. Then the pandemic came and everybody started doing it. We were really ready for that. All we had to do was throw the switch and we were doing it. It was not that big a deal for us. But as we go back, I think the genie's out of the bottle. Everyone now knows that we can do this. And I think that online classes are going to be, people are going to expect to be able to do that now, where before that was just a different way and you had to be a certain type of person. There are people who have to have that in-class environment in order to learn. And I understand that. I'm one of those people. But now, once we get into the avatar stuff and we get into the augmented reality and virtual reality kinds of classrooms, that really is placing the student in the classroom that can't make it to the classroom. So I think that's going to be huge. I think that's where that's something, an advantage for education. And I think that's where we're going to start heading with that. And we really need to be ready for that. On the other side, as I mentioned before, when my students leave, they're going to have jobs where they're going to have to use augmented reality. And if they're not exposed to it here, then where else?
That's true. I imagine interview questions of the future, right? Yes. Have you heard of a digital twin? Do you know what augmented reality is?
Yeah. How many times before the pandemic, did you get a meeting invitation? And before you just assume that, okay, I have to go to room something or other or someplace. Now it's like, what do you mean it's not being Zoomed?
Yeah. Yep. And my thing with Zoom has just been, if people turn their cameras off and their students and their microphone off, they're gone.
Right. Yeah. And there's plenty of excuses for that. Bandwidth is a problem sometimes, especially in a rural area. Where the student says, well, if I turn my camera on, then it breaks up and I can't see, and they're right. So I can't force them to turn their camera on. But then again, at the end of a class, as I wait for everybody to sign off, there are one or two sometimes who never do. So where are they?
Yep. totally relate. So
Yeah.
I think we've all gone through that, but it would be great if yeah, we were all in there together, but also in person. Just I think interacting with and collaborating with making or choosing models and making those experiences and making them relevant and using them in different ways. I think my last thought is when I was recently I was at USC and showing the cockpit stuff to the aviation students in the master's program, and they were like, "Oh, we have this now. We can think about safety systems, not just design." Like, it made them think about different stuff, and that was very enlightening to me. Where again, I didn't think of that. Right? I'm thinking about showing them what everything is. They're thinking about, oh, I want to create. I want to understand this in terms of safety and in terms of the way I'm going to design certain systems. So, like you said before, students come up with different ideas when they see visual stuff.
And one of the other things that I think the augmented and virtual reality is going to help us with, you think of a college in a rural area who's trying to find an instructor to teach something very technical or just not something where that there's a lot of folks around that have a really good knowledge of it. How are you going to get an instructor to drive someplace that's rural to teach a class? If I'm using augmented or virtual reality, I can have an instructor in a big city teaching a class that's out in a rural area somewhere.
That's a really good point. And also just the idea of the types of jobs from the rural areas. I know in California, where I live, the largest regions in terms of definitely geography are the central part of California. It's all agriculture, but it's also a huge part of our state. And it's hard to get people to teach certain things. Like a lot of teachers from Southern California, for example, teach in Central, but also in the northern part, the schools they could be an hour and a half to 3 hours apart.
Yeah.
So it is very hard. And then it's hard to get to share environments other than where you're at. So if you're teaching like something, I'm going to say, like even what I teach, like filmmaking, like there might not be a studio even anywhere by where you're at. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good point. So so this has been really fun, Peter. And very enlightening. I'm so excited that you have those amazing ideas in cyber and computer science and IT for students. And I hope that teachers everywhere benefit from your thoughts and ideas on how to incorporate immersive content within lessons and really help students of all types where they're at. And so and I wanted to really thank you and Manchester Community College in New Hampshire for participating and being with us here at EON, and really enjoy the relationship and wanted to thank you.
I have to say though, and you didn't ask me to say this, so I want to make sure that everybody knows that. One of the best experiences I think that we had when we first coming onboarding was the amount of support that EON had for us. I mean, they were there helping us through all kinds of things that probably they didn't need to be, but they were there anyway. So it made onboarding for us really easy to have your staff helping us do all those things, and they still are. They're still there. Whenever I try to do something weird, they're always out there swinging away with me, trying to help me do it.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. I mean, that's the pleasure we definitely get, and being an education focus, but real true partners. And so that's one of the probably my favorite things about working with EON is just continuing that education adventure with everybody and being creative and being a visual thinker. For me, it's solves a lot of my own learning issues, and so I enjoy sharing that with everybody all around the world. So really appreciate that. Yeah.
Great. This has been fun.
So thank you so much. With that, I'm going to say thank you to everybody all around the world. Again, EON with Peter Lamonica from Manchester Community College. And thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.